What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi with a brand new deck profile video. This time I'll be showing you my brand new updated 60 card in the main deck, Darkness deck. It took me a while to get the recipe right, and I'm still tinkering with it a little bit, but so far this has been the build that's given me the most success. Honestly, it's just an expanded version of the 40 card build, but I really like the direction it's going in now, and I could not be happier with its performance. Let's see where this goes. Now, given that this deck has so many more monsters than the other one, I'm going to do things a bit differently, and this time I'm going to start with the level 4s. Triple Armageddon Knight, which actually does the most work out of any card in this deck in my opinion. When it's summoned, regardless of how, you send a dark monster from the deck to the grave. Makes everything easier in the long run. Same with Dark Repper, but because of the fact that you have to discard a dark monster from your hand to the graveyard before you can send a dark monster from your deck to the graveyard, it makes it a little bit harder to use. But you can discard a level 5 or higher dark monster from your hand to special summon him from your hand, so he's not necessarily bad, and he does get rid of problem cards that you can't use immediately. Single Doomsday Horror still, but I'm thinking about putting it to 2 because of how much this deck banishes. It gains 300 attack and defense for each banished dark monster, and when it's destroyed and sent to the grave, all banished dark monsters go right back to the grave, which gives me automatic refill for a vast majority of my effects. Triple Kage to Kage. It's a questionable card right now because of the fact that its summoning capabilities are so restrictive, but it does special summon itself from your hand when you normal summon a level 4 monster, so honestly it's still good enough to run, and with the 60 card deck I don't run into it often enough to where it's a problem unless I search it out first. Single Prometheus, King of the Shadows. When normal summoned, you banish dark monsters out of your graveyard and give him 400 attack points per monster. But this attack increase only lasts until the end phase, and given how high the monster count in this deck is, including the extra deck, he gets to be pretty beefy. Double Shaddoll Dragon. If it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you get to blow up a spell trap, but if it's flipped face up, you get to target a card your opponent controls and put it back in the hand. Honestly, it's just more for the grave effect. I barely use its hand effect ever, or its flip effect ever. Double Summoner Monk. I wish I could put this to 3, but there's obvious reasons as to why I can't. If you summon it, you have to switch it to defense, and once per turn you can drop a spell from your hand to the graveyard to special summon a level 4 monster from your deck. More often than not, I use this to get the Armageddon Knight that I need, so I can drop an extra card and get more resource. Double Witch of the Black Rose. I'm thinking about putting this card to 1 because it cannot be special summoned, but it is a level 4 tuner, which is infinitely valuable in this deck. And when it's normal summon, when you have no other cards on the field, you do get to draw a card, and if it's a monster, you get to keep it. Next we get to the part of the deck that is everything that's not a level 4 monster. Triple Battle Fader. If you're about to be direct attacked, you special summon him from your hand, and if you do, the battle phase is over. Very handy in the event that my field presence for whatever reason would get disrupted. Shaddoll Falco at 3. If it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, you get to set it from the grave. And if it gets flipped, you get to set a different Shaddoll monster from your grave to the field. And then we get to the Phantom Knight engine as far as the monsters. Triple Ancient Cloak and Triple Silent Boots. Ancient Cloak says you can switch it from attack to defense mode to give a dark monster 800 extra attack points, which I don't use very often. More often than not, I just use it for its graveyard effect, which allows you to banish it from the graveyard to add any Phantom Knight's card from your deck to your hand. Silent Boots, though, helps me set up my rank 3 plays, because if you control a Phantom Knight's monster, you can special summon him from your hand, and if he's in the graveyard, you get to banish him to add a Phantom Knight's spell trap from the deck to the hand. Of course, both of their effects, all of them, can only be activated once per turn. Triple Shaddoll Beast. If it's sent to the grave by card effect, you get to draw a card, which is my primary target for when I use Armageddon Knight in the event that I just get a crap hand. But its flip effect is good too, and I've used it in tandem with Shaddoll Falco more times than I want to admit. If it's flipped, you get to draw 2 and discard 1. And Triple Dark Creator. I adore this monster in this deck more than anything in the world. It fits too well. If you have 5 or more dark monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon it. You can banish a dark monster once per turn out of your graveyard to special summon any other dark monster in your graveyard. Next we move into the spell lineup, which, just like the monsters, is fairly high. Triple Allure of Darkness. Nothing made me happier than when I found out this card went back to 3. Draw 2 cards and banish a dark out of your hand. Very easy to get rid of those problematic dark monsters you don't need. Creeping Darkness, though, is a special tech that I like to use. You banish any 2 dark monsters out of your graveyard, and then you get to add a level 4 dark monster from your deck to your hand. This is mainly how I search out the Witch of the Black Rose that, while can't be special summoned, does have a useful effect if it happens to be the lone monster on my field when it's summoned. Double Galaxy Cyclone. Some people were asking me why I didn't put this card in my Earth deck because it was bumped up to 50, but that's because, frankly, it does better in decks that are higher count than 50. You use it to blow up a set spell trap, and if it's in the graveyard, except during the turn it was sent there, you can banish it from the grave to destroy a face-up spell trap. More often than not, I just use the Shaddoll Dragon over this card, and if I end up getting this, I don't even really need to use it that much. Reinforcement of the Army, still upset that card's only at 1 right now, but I have plenty of targets, mainly just Armageddon Knight and, well, actually that's the first one that comes to mind. Triple Shaddoll Fusion. I love this card, it sets up everything I do. I can drop any dark monsters from my deck to the graveyard, one of which has to be a Shaddoll, to fusion summon a Shaddoll Fusion monster. And there's only one Shaddoll Fusion monster, but its requirements allow me to drop any Shaddoll and any dark monster, which more often than not will be a Phantom Knights monster. Triple That Grass Looks Greener. Yeah, that price tag is still a little too high to flat out buy it, so I'm going to keep working on trading for more copies. The thing is, though, this card is barely played. It's more of an accessory than an actual utility. If my main deck has more cards in it than my opponent's main deck, which is fairly often, I just mill the excess until the number's the same. Double Beginning of the End. This card sees so much play, and I've won so many games because of the random triple draw that I get off of this, I can't explain how useful it is. You banish 5 dark monsters out of your graveyard if you have 7 or more in the grave, and then you get to draw 3 cards. Very easy to use in this deck, especially in tandem with that grass. And the single copy of Phantom Knights Rank Up Magic Launch. I don't use this card this often. It's great MST bait though, or Twin Twisters, depending on how you play. But I do use it often enough to warrant it at least at 1. You get to rank up a dark monster you control who has no Xyz materials, and if you do, this card becomes an Xyz material on it. And if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to attach a Phantom Knights monster from your hand to an Xyz monster you control as a material. So it has multi-use. And then we finish up with the trap lineup. I'm sure a few of you have been more than curious about this. Storing the single bottomless, standard in every deck I run. Double Dark Light. You tribute a dark monster you control at 1500 or more attack, and you destroy all monsters that were special summoned this turn. I tried running this card at 3, but 2 just seems to be more flexible whether the build's 40 or 60. And it's still great to use, but I'm actually looking for something to run over it that might be better. And then the Phantom Knights trap cards. Single copy of Sword, triple copy of Fogblade. I feel like this is a fair engine. I don't really like the other one very much. I'm not saying it's bad, I just say I don't like it. But the Sword says that you get to give a monster 800 attack points, and the Fogblade basically is Fiendish Chain. The monster equipped with it has its effects negated, cannot attack, but it also cannot be attacked, which is inherently a problem, but honestly that just means I can use it on my own monster or my opponent's in the event that the situation would arise where I need to. And they both share the effect that if it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to special summon a Phantom Knights monster from your graveyard, but you can only use each of those effects once per turn. And then the single Solemn Warning. Next we move into the side deck, which actually has some questionable cards in it. The third Dark Grepher is here, a second copy of Prometheus, a single Phantom Knights of Cloven Helm. I used to run this card in the main, or at least I thought about running it in the main, but really it's just too slow to run in the main. It doesn't really add anything to the deck. If a Phantom Knights card is sent to the graveyard, he gains 500 attack, and you can banish him from the graveyard to add any Phantom Knights card from your graveyard back to your hand, but that happens at the end phase, and each of these effects can only be played once a turn, so realistically it's just really slow. It's not even worth using in most instances. But I keep it just in the event that I need to put my Fogblades back in my hand for some reason. Dark Requiem Xyz Dragon. People are probably upset that I don't put this in the actual extra deck, but it's mainly just because I don't like the fact that it doesn't get its effects unless it has Dark Rebellion attached to it, and the only way I can summon it that way is with Rank Up Magic Launch. and my deck has so many extra deck monsters of rank 4, I can pretty much just exceed into something else and it'd be a lot easier on me. It's really just not worth playing with it being such a linear setup. Double Dark Hole, double MST in the event that the Galaxy Cyclones don't work out. A second copy of Magic Launch, compulsory. Double Memory Loss in the event that I need to do some non-targeting monster effect negation. Mirror Force, Torrential, and Vanities. And then we finish up with the extra deck, which honestly hasn't seen that much of a difference. Still running the triple Winda. As long as it's on the field, each player only gets one special summon a turn, cannot be destroyed by card effects, and if it were sent to the graveyard by some means, then you get to add back a Shaddoll fusion card from your grave to your hand. Single Ally of Justice Catastor, which actually is easier to summon now than it ever was before. Destroys anything that it battles with that's not a dark monster, which is quite funny. Quite funny. And the Celestial Wolf Lord Blue Sirius, which is okay. If it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you get to target an opponent's monster and reduce its attack points by 2,400. That's actually significant. It's a shame you have to lose a synchro monster to do it, but you know what? I'm not going to complain. Dark Strike Fighter. Once per turn, you contribute a monster on the field and deal 200 points of damage per its level, but because of that nerf, it's nowhere near as spammy as it used to be, which I am fine with in all honesty. Yeah, no dark deck would ever be complete without a Beals. Can't be destroyed by battle or card effect. If you take damage, then you give this thing attack points equal to the damage you took. It's an infinitely growing beat stick. Dark End Dragon. This is a personal tech that I choose to run over Void Ogre Dragon because, well, I usually have a hand in most instances. Once per turn, you can reduce its attack and defense by 500 to send any monster on the field to the graveyard. So it can get rid of problem cards. Like, for prime example, an opponent's fields. And that's always fun. Single Phantom Knights of Breaksword. Scrap Dragon effect. You detach a material, you target 2 cards, one on your field and one on your opponent's, and destroy them both. And if he's destroyed and sent to the grave, you get to special summon 2 Phantom Knights monsters of the same level from your graveyard, and increase their levels by 1. Kyron Gorgon, I'm finding him less useful lately. He's great against the Zodiac matchup, I'll say that much. But other than that, he's really not that grand. He redirects targeting effects to target a single card. I do use him to redirect those random MSTs or those Trident Strikes. So he's funny, just not as useful as he used to be. And then of course the Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon. I keep getting his names mixed up. Double detach, target a monster, reduce its attack by half, and give it to this monster. Evil Swarm Nightmare. This card's funny. Whenever your opponent would special summon a monster or monsters, you detach a material to set them all face down, and it's not once per turn either. Fairly weak, but given its effect, it's a perfect counter to decks that special summon a lot, like Pendulums. For now. Then we've got the Evil Swarm Ouroboros. Essentially, it's the Trishula of the deck, 3 level 4s. You get to activate one of its 3 effects by detaching a material once per turn, but you can only use each effect once. You can either target a card your opponent controls and return it to the hand, send a random card from your opponent's hand to the grave, or target a card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. So it's good. It's just, where you only get one shot of each of its effects, it's less useful. Still running the King of the Feral Imps because of the Kage to Kage plays are just hilarious. Detach material, add any reptile from deck to hand. And for my rank 5 target, right now I'm running Crimson Knight Vampire Bram. And yes, I am running this over Dark Requiem, because while its summoning may be too specific to do naturally, its effect, in my opinion, is better because it doesn't have a requirement as to what it has to have attached to it. And its effect is really good. You detach a material and steal a monster in your opponent's graveyard, but only that monster can attack this turn. And if this thing would be destroyed, you get to bring it back during your next standby phase. In defense mode, but still, that's fine. And that is the deck. Honestly, like I said before, it's just an expansion and an increase in the deck's original formatting, with more copies of the old cards that it used to run, and a couple of new tech cards, mainly just that grass. And in all honesty, surprisingly enough, it works. I hope you guys like the deck profile, and if you can think of anything I can do to improve this deck a little more, feel free to let me know. In the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.
What's the next stage? What's the next stage?